Hey guitar players, today I want to talk about triads, but not the way that you're used to learning them, which is usually horizontally across the neck. Instead, I want to teach them to you guys vertically across the neck from top to bottom, using shapes that we're super familiar with that we use every day, just regular bar chord shapes and one open string shape, or one open chord shape. Learning your triads in this way is simpler, faster, and just easier all around for when you want to quickly figure out what the triads are for chords that you use all the time. Let's dig into it. So a triad video wouldn't be right unless I explain briefly what a triad is and how they're built. A triad is simply a three-note chord. Every major and minor chord that you play, whether it's a bar chord, open chord, whatever, is a triad, right? So sometimes people make the mistake, they think, oh, I'm pressing 6 strings down, so it must not be a triad. Well, even though you're pressing 6 strings down, you're technically only playing 3 notes. So quick example with the G major bar chord would be the notes that you're playing are G, D, G, B, D, G. And just looking at that chord, you can see you have 3 G notes, 2 D notes, and 1 B note. So even though you're playing 6 strings, you're technically only playing 3 different notes, thus making it a triad. Okay, so all triads basically work that way. They're just 3 notes, and they're created by taking a scale, right? And either using the first, third, and fifth, or the first, flat, third, and fifth. So in this lesson today, we're only going to cover major and minor triads. We're going to leave out the diminished and augmented and any other triad that appears in the key. We're going to leave them for another day. So anyway, to make a major triad, if you're starting on G, you would just look at a major scale, right? And you would just you'd have the notes for the G major scale, which are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. We would see what is the first note, which is G. What's the third note of that scale? It's a B. And what's the fifth note? It's a D. Those 3 notes, the root, the third, and the fifth, are what make it a major triad. Now, if you want to look at the minor triad or figure out how you make a minor triad, all you do is take those same 3 notes and you flatten the third. So in this case, we have G, B, and D. The B note is the third. We're going to flatten that and we would end up with the G minor chord. And if you look at the bar chord for a second, the major G major bar chord, the only difference between that chord and the minor is that you lift up your middle finger. So anyway, again, you can just see that there's still just 3 notes in that minor chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these shapes that we use all the time and we're just going to break them into little 3-string sections, okay? So in order for us to get into this, you're going to have to know 3 major shapes and its minor counterpart. So the first one is going to be the major bar chord. We're going to use G major for all these examples. So we have to know the G major bar chord, which is on the 3rd fret, and its counterpart, which is the minor bar chord, where you lift up the middle finger. So we also have to know the G minor bar chord. Then we're also going to play the G major chord on the top 3 strings on the G, B, and E strings. And we're going to steal this D major chord shape and we're just going to slide it down to fret 8. That gives us G major. And then we're also going to need to know G minor, okay? And I'll put these charts on the screen there so you guys can see them. We also are going to need to know the last one, which is the G major bar chord with the root on the A string. So the major and its counterpart, the minor. Okay? So those are the shapes that we need to know. And now we're going to break down each one of these and I'm going to show you how the triads come off of each shape. And we're going to do all the majors and then we'll go back, we'll do all the minors. So let's get started with the G major chord, okay? So we're using the 6-string bar chord. And the way this is going to break down is we're going to go with the G, B, and E strings. So right on the top, you're going to end up with this first shape, okay? And then we are going to have our second shape, which is on the D, G, and B strings. We're going to have our third shape, which is on the A, D, and G strings. And then our final shape, which is going to be 7, 5, 5 on the E, A, and D strings. So all together, that's going to sound like this. Those are all G major triads. Now, when we get to the bottom here, you're going to say, why are we playing this 7th fret on the low E string? And the reason is because as we come down these triads, the top note replaces, when you pick it up and you remove it, that note gets moved to the bottom of the chord. So on this first shape, we have the notes G, D, and B. When I get rid of that G on the high E string, it now is moved to the 5th fret of the D string. So now we have D, B, G, and then when I move down to the next one, I'm getting rid of the D note, and then that's getting moved to the A string, right? So now we have B, G, D, and then we're getting rid of the B note, and that's getting moved down to low E string, so we end up having G, D, B, okay? So we don't use this 3 here or this G down here because it's already being used on the 5th fret of the D string for that last shape, okay? But I still look at it based off of this bar chord, even though I'm not using that root on that last shape there. So anyway, that is the first position, and the way you want to learn it is just simply going down like that. And then back up. Okay? Our next shape is going to be the G major here. Now for this one, we really got to use this expansion idea of taking the high note and moving it to the lowest point. So because this chord is only covering 3 strings, we sort of have to add these other ones onto the bottom ones. But I won't get into the whys and all this stuff, but it's going to work perfectly. So anyway, our first shape ends up being that regular shape just like that. Now we're going to get rid of the B string or the B note, and we're going to move that to the 9th fret of the D string, and we get shape 2. Then we're going to get rid of the G, and we're going to move it to the A string. We get shape 3, and then we get rid of our D, and we move that down to the E string, and we get shape 4. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all our shapes for that second position. Super cool, right? Now let's keep going on to the A string major shape, okay? And we're gonna have the notes G, D, G, B, okay? And what we're gonna do on this one is the top string, the high E, we're gonna add this D note up there, and that's gonna give us our first shape. So we're gonna have this shape. And we got the notes G, B, D. Now we're gonna remove the D, move it down. We'll get D, G, B. You could either bar this one, or you could go, you know, do the 1, 2, 3 thing, however you want to do that. Now we're going to get rid of the B note. We're going to bring that down to the A string. So we're going to have B, D, G. Okay. And then we're going to get rid of the G, and we're going to bring that down to low E string, and we're going to have G, B, D, all the way on the bottom. It's going to be our last shape. So now our final bar chord is going to look like this. Okay, now let's go to the minors. The minors are now going to be not the same shapes, but they're going to be very close to the other ones. We're just flattening the third everywhere. But basically, here's the shapes we're going to get. So with this first minor bar chord, our first shape is going to just be 3, 3, 3, or G, D, and B flat. Now we're going to remove the G, move it down to the D string. We get this shape. And now we have G, B flat, D. We're going to move the D down now. We get this shape. It's going to be D, G, and B flat. And now we're going to move the B flat down. We're going to go have this shape. B flat, D, G. So all together, I love the way minor chords sound. We'll move to the next shape again. So now we're using the G minor on the top 3 strings, and we get the notes, same notes, right? We're gonna have G, B flat, and D. And we're gonna remove the B flat, and that's gonna give us this shape. So now we have B flat, D, and G. We remove the G, and now we get this shape. And we have G, B flat, and D. Now we remove the D, and we get this shape. D, G, and B flat. So all those shapes. Super cool. And now the last one, the regular minor bar chord with the root on the A string. And we have the notes G, D, G, B flat, D, right? So when we strip that down to the 3-note triad shapes, we're gonna have this top shape here, which are notes G, B flat, and D. And then we remove the D note, bring it down, and now we're gonna get this shape, which is going to be D, G, and B flat. We remove the B flat, and we put it down there. Now we have B flat, D, and G, and now we're going to remove the G and bring it down to the bottom. We get our final shape, G, B flat, and D. All together we get and if I play through everything, all your triads up and down. There are 3 main reasons that I like to teach triads in this way. The first reason is for faster visualization. When I can get a student to learn the triads based off of a chord shape they're already using, if they find it so much easier to see it broken into pieces. The second reason is it's better for control when playing rhythm. So when I did that little opening, basically I played a little triad and then I played a lead line off of it. And I find it much easier for me to play lead lines when I'm playing off these small triad shapes than off of like a full bar chord or something like that. The other reason too is that like if I want to comp on just one chord, I can just use that one G major shape and I can break it into 4 little triads, and I can switch between those 4 triads, and even though I'm not changing chords, it sort of sounds like to the listener like I might be changing chords even though I'm just staying on one chord. So for example, if I went right, like they're all exactly the same chord because they're the same notes, but they sounded a little bit different because of the way that the inversions work. Anyway, let's go to number 3. The third reason is the quick access to melodies and solos. So like I said, when I played that opening, I just find it faster to be able to play these little shapes and then grab lead lines off of it. Like when I played this little B minor, I was able to just, play right off of that little triad shape. And I can't tell you, at first learning it, it may be a little tricky to get your head around this, but I promise you it's worth whatever time it takes to get these memorized. And if you want, you just learn them one at a time. Just start with the major in the first position, right? In this first bar chord. Just learn those 4. Just being able to jump right through all those. That way you can really visualize and go, okay, this is the chord. Here's how it's broken down into all the triad shapes. Then once you really get that, move to the next chord. Okay, here's the minor thing. And then you figure out what the sequence of notes is, right? And you can rewind this video. I'll have the notes on the screen there. And you know what? If you go to the link below, I'll put a download so you can print out each chord and its triads as they come down the strings. That way you have a reference that you can use and you can slowly start to knock these out. I promise you it's going to be worth it. I'm not going to go into today how you solo with them just because it would make the video so long and I want to keep it short. But guys, I really appreciate you watching this. If you got something out of it, please like and subscribe. Check out my guitar flashcards on Amazon. Don't forget to check out my course that covers everything on the flashcards if you're trying to get into music theory and things like that. I'm going to be posting stuff regularly on this channel, so please subscribe. I really appreciate everything you guys do. Take care.